Good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you might be. My name is Kevin Michael Grace, and this is the KMG show for Wednesday, November the 4th, 2020. I'm often accused of being a depressive person, a natural black pillar, but until last night, I never really thought that it'd be possible for an American election to be stolen in front of everyone. And this appears to be what has happened. That, oh, yes, we're going to call all the states for Joe Biden, even with no votes. But the states where Donald Trump is well ahead, well, we're not going to call them. We're going to wait. And then we're going to say that, yeah, there are 10 gajillion votes out there. And it looks like Donald Trump hasn't won any of these states. Let's look at the Twitter feed of the President of the United States. I should say that last night's show went on for 6 hours. Tonight's show is not going to go on for 6 hours. It might be shorter than usual. But here we go. Donald Trump tweeted a minute ago, demands arise for Pennsylvania Attorney General to step aside, referring to a story from Breitbart, calls for Pennsylvania AG Josh Shapiro to step aside or resign, or rising after he urged voters to seek election help from Democrats. 35 minutes ago from Donald Trump, our lawyers have asked for meaningful access, but what good does that do? The damage has already been done to the integrity of our system and to the presidential election itself. This is what should be discussed. 2 hours ago from Donald Trump, we have claimed for electoral vote purposes the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, which won't allow legal observers, the state of Georgia, and the state of North Carolina, each one of which has a big Trump lead. Additionally, we hereby claim the state of Michigan. Oh, and what's this? I have a little interruption from Twitter, which says official sources may not have called the race when this was tweeted. Oh, yes. So once again, Twitter apparently is the new electoral college. 2 hours ago from Donald Trump, and I don't get to see his video unless I click on something which says view, because some or all of the content shared in this tweet is disputed and might be misleading about an election or other civic process. So I click on it. And additionally, we hereby claim the state of Michigan if, in fact, there was a large number of secretly dumped ballots, as has been widely reported. 5 hours ago, we are winning Pennsylvania big, but the Pennsylvania Secretary of State just announced that there are millions of ballots left to be counted. Wow, it looks like Michigan has now found the ballots necessary to keep a wonderful young man, John James, out of the U.S. Senate. What a terrible thing is happening. 7 hours ago, again, Trump's tweet has been obscured, and I have to click on view because it might be misleading. What he had to say was they are working hard to make 500,000 vote advantage in Pennsylvania disappear, ASAP, likewise, Michigan, and others. I'll just say this. Regardless of how this American election ends up, whether Trump wins, whether Biden wins, whether this goes to the courts and is ultimately adjudicated by the Supreme Court of the United States, a line has been crossed. And that line is the belief of Americans and the belief of the rest of the world that American elections are fair. That's over now. It's finished. And the Democrats and their enablers in the elite and the media don't seem to understand how important this is. Because when people no longer believe that their elections are fair, that's when they move to, how should we say, extrajudicial means, gunplay, revolution, and the like. Trump tweeted 8 hours ago, "What is this all about?" And again, I'm not supposed to be able to see what he said, but Twitter tells me some or all of the content shared in this tweet is disputed and might be misleading about an election or other civic process. How about that? Yesterday, the Democratic nominee, Joe Biden, was campaigning in Pennsylvania. And first of all, he introduced his granddaughter or his niece as his dead son, Beau, and said, "Yeah, you might remember him. You all brought him to the Senate in this state." And then he realized that he'd made a mistake, and then he confused his daughter or his niece with his other daughter or niece. But of course, what was not mentioned by the media is that Joe Biden's late dead sainted son, Beau, obviously not his given name, was never elected to the Senate in Pennsylvania. Why is this important? Well, because the Democratic Party and its enablers in the elite and the media decided that they were going to push a senile buffoon across the finish line. They're going to drag him across the finish line. And you don't want a senile buffoon to be president of the United States, do you? Oh, no, never mind that. We have Kamala. Yeah, but how is that exactly going to work? Never mind that. We'll figure it out. Okay. We can't have Orange Bad Man re-elected. It comes down to that. Donald J. Trump tweeted 8 hours ago, "How come every time they count mail-in ballot dumps, they are so devastating in their percentage and power of destruction?" Well, that is a question that answers itself, because these are fake ballots. There's no question about it. If ballots that were counted late were, 55-45 Biden versus Trump, that would traditionally be considered a landslide. But that's not enough for these people. They don't want 55-45. They want 60-40. They want 70-30. They want 80-20. They want 100 to nothing, because that's the only way that they can win. Again, here's a tweet from the President of the United States 9 hours ago. And Twitter tells me some or all of the content shared in this tweet is disputed and might be misleading about an election or other civic process. I like that, or other civic process. You see, we're not doing this to put Donald Trump out of office. We're looking at the big picture here. Trump tweeted, "Last night I was leading, often solidly, in many key states, in almost all instances, Democrat-run and controlled. Then, one by one, they started to magically disappear as surprise ballot dumps were counted. Very strange, and the pollsters got it completely and historically wrong." I don't know. I must confess to feeling a little bit stupid this morning, because I never thought that they would be so obvious about this. But of course, going back 4 years, they never admitted, that is to say, the elites, they never admitted that Donald Trump had actually been legitimately elected president of the United States. "Not my president," they said. Let's go to the chat here and see what we have. Anrun says, "Kevin, this must be a small eye-opener for you. You seem relatively unconcerned about a steal happening. I asked in chat about it last week, and you said you weren't worried about it because of ACB. Well, yes, I must confess to being like a little child in this regard, because to openly steal an election in the way that Democrats are doing so now it's horrifying. Because what it means is that no subsequent election will ever be taken seriously, will ever be regarded as legitimate. The Democrats don't seem to worry about this. because their motto is, well, we win always. Chogakin 666 says, when I went to bed, there was no mathematical possibility of Biden winning. Yes, I went to, I stopped broadcasting last night at about shortly after 10 p.m. Pacific time, and no, it looked like Biden was done. But here we have a repeat of the 2018 midterms where, oh, yeah, it's funny. I was walking across the room and I tripped on something. And what did you trip on? Well, it was a big bag. A big bag of what? Well, a big bag of hundreds of thousands of Joe Biden votes. So I guess he must be the winner. I don't know where this bag came from, but never mind. They all count the same. Guillaume Dimashi says, it's over, only cope left, no organization, no elite support, inept legal challenges. It'll be like 2020, doesn't matter who really won. It's all about who's holding the ball when the clock runs out. Could be. That could be the end result, but once again, I say this is not good for a democracy. This is the worst possible thing that could happen. Halper says, yep, they pulled out all the stops to beat literal Hitler. Enron says, I worry there isn't the institutional support for Trump to beat this theft. And will the American people riot for a man who, perhaps legitimately, lost the popular vote? Again, Buddy says they weren't going to be about to get caught with the drawdown like in 2016. Enough blackpilling, says Yo Mama. Trump did win, Kevin says, Enron. Yeah, I think that he won. But again, when you have a situation where the courts have to get involved in order to validate or invalidate various counts, this is pretty much the end of democracy as it is traditionally understood. Traditionally, you win some, you lose some, and you say, we'll get them next time. But the Democrats have obviously decided that, no, we're going to win this time and every time because we simply can't abide the possibility of losing. Buddy says it's not quite over, but the deep state is showing their hand and it's a full house. Yeah. I wonder where those cards came from and where they were hiding them. Brandon Smith says, I never saw one Biden 2020 spam in any YouTube chat ever. Seems hundreds of Trump 2020. Well, yes, what we're supposed to believe is there was this enormous, perhaps over-the-top enthusiasm for Donald Trump, but the Biden voters were all quietly biding their time. Oh, no, we're not going to say that we would support Joe Biden. We're certainly not going to show up to his rallies or anything like that. We just know that we have the power of the vote and we're holding it close. And we are going to exercise that power on November the 3rd, which would mean that it's unlike any other election in American history. But life is full of surprises, isn't it? YT says Trump seemed determined yesterday during his speech. He looked really angry to me, even though he's very serious and composed. Jim Smith reminds us of the actual name, the given name of Joe Biden's dead sainted son, Joseph Robinette Biden the third. Sounds very grand, doesn't it? 99 Iron Duke says Trump might be able to turn it around with recounts and maybe in the courts, but I am not optimistic. Peter Levy says this is why hysteria lasted until the election, so they could justify mass mail voting in swing states and fabricate votes as needed. Brandon Smith says regime change is their specialty. Well, yes, indeed. Glib Medley says tech companies are speaking power to truth. I like that. That's very good. Let's see what our friend Jim Kunstler has to say. The election has rolled out as expected here. That is not resolved the morning after, with Antifa and BLM rioters already moiling in the streets of Washington, D.C. Portland, Oregon remains in continual uproar after 4 months of violence and destruction, and Mayor Ted Wheeler won re-election against Antifa candidate Sarah Iannarone. Lucky Portland. Outside the swing states still in play, the margins were strikingly lopsided. Joe Biden's radiant charisma worked in the usual blue coastal states: California 65 to 33%, New York 55 to 33%. But Trump's margins were equally lopsided in the flyover red states: Oklahoma 65 to 32%, Tennessee 60% to 37%, Missouri 56% to 41%. Biden won trumpingly in Virginia once the deep state bedroom counties next to D.C. came in late at night. But the president won convincingly in Florida, Ohio, and Texas. For now, at 9 a.m. Wednesday, the race hinges on the usual suspects. Trump is up 0.5% in Michigan with 91% of votes counted. Biden is 0.7 up in Wisconsin with 95% in, awaiting Green Bay results, delayed apparently because a vote processing machine ran out of ink! Exclamation mark. Similar close margins in North Carolina, not so close in Georgia, with the president ahead a healthy 2%, and finally the dark maw of mischief, Pennsylvania, where Trump was up by more than 10 full percentage points, 700,000 votes this morning, but awaiting more than 1 million mail-in ballots. Let's not forget the rather reckless remark made by Pennsylvania Attorney General Josh Shapiro on Halloween night that, quote, "If all the votes are added up, Trump is going to lose," unquote. Sounded pretty sure of himself. Now, as I understand it, the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court ruled recently that counties could continue to process mail-in votes until Friday, and more important, that they didn't need to require postmarks or signature authentication, which would appear an easy invitation to simple ballot fraud. The president vowed late Tuesday night to take a case to the U.S. Supreme Court, where I expect the Pennsylvania ruling will be tossed out as self-evidently unsound. Can the forces of democratic lawfare work around that? I don't see how, but I'm not a constitutional lawyer. The Dems have worked hard in recent years to manufacture the inane and false narrative that any kind of voter ID procedure amounts to suppression. America needs to get its mind right about that. Does lawfare have other tricks up its sleeve? I rather expect so, but the president has had months to plan his own defense against the threat of a lawfare coup. So now we will see the game play out. Meanwhile, we await mayhem in the streets, condoned and encouraged by Joe Biden's party, as though that will endear him to the nation. Further updates as required. I want to talk about voter ID. When I moved to California in 1994, one of the first things I was told by the people that I worked with, that you have to get two things. You have to get a social security number, and you have to get photo ID. Because apparently, in 1994, you needed a social security number and you needed photo ID, enabled to do pretty much anything. So I sent away for my social security number that arrived in the mail, but getting my photo ID took longer. That is to say, standing in line for 3 hours or so at the DMV before I got my picture taken, and then that arrived. Without photo ID in the United States, what can't you do? Can you rent an apartment? You can't go on an airplane, say. You can't leave the country. There's pretty much nothing that you can do in the United States without a photo ID. But we are told, and we're expected to believe, that, oh no, Black people don't have photo ID. Oh, they don't have photo ID. So can they cash a check, say, ever? No, it's absolutely preposterous. Absolutely preposterous. But this is one of the things that we're all supposed to believe, that the evil white man who racialized black people because they weren't a race before has decided that, oh, they need photo ID to do everything. What, you mean just like everyone else in the United States of America? And we won't let them get their photo ID. How does that work exactly? If you go on the internet or you stand in line or whatever, you get your ID. It's the same for everyone. Oh no, but black votes aren't being counted. Yeah, no, black votes are counted, and apparently they're counted once, twice, three times if necessary. But again, this is one of those things that all respectable people are supposed to believe. Let's go back to the chat here and see what we have. Wisconsin Biden dump was obviously fraudulent. This is from Peter Levy. I knew Michigan was iffy, but Wisconsin was a Trump favorite. Mephistopheles Ghost says Trump SCOTUS appointments are about to pay off. Peter Levy, Trump can still pull it off, not even cope here. Arizona still needs to be counted, and Pennsylvania could go to SCOTUS. Chogakin 666, he could show the same determination as the scoundrel Bush in stealing that election. Peter Levy, again, Fox is a complete disgrace. I hope the company completely collapses as they realize they need their viewers more than their viewers need them. Yeah, that's a difficult position to be in a business where you're ashamed of your most loyal customers. Yeah, you see the Tucker Carlson ratings? Yeah, highest in history. Why do you sound disappointed there? Yeah, these assholes who watch our channel. Like, you think that the people who watch your channel are assholes? Why are you working for this company then, if you hate your best customers that much? Again, from Peter Levy, North Carolina will be called as soon as Biden declares victory. YT, Tucker said we shouldn't pile up on Hunter because he's a fallen man and had enough. Has he had enough? Really? Has he been indicted? Has he been arrested? So my understanding, we have his father calling him the smartest man I ever met. And again, I'll have to say, my definition of the smartest man I ever met would not be of a man close to 50 years old, as if that matters. But, you know, one would think that a 50-year-old would be more discreet in certain matters. Taking a naked selfie of himself so that you can see, and it's been deliberately posed in this way, that his 14-year-old niece is in the bed behind him. Again, people might judge me too harsh. That is not my idea of the smartest man in the world. Chogokin 666 says, not a single Dem or Lib will allow themselves to admit this was a massive crime. Brandon Smith, half the population being dumber than the average person on full display last night. Mephistopheles Ghost says the stock market was up huge on this chaos. Dawn from Beyond says, I'm a poor, humble DoorDash driver because of COVID hoax scam. But even I found $10 to donate to Trump today to help secure his win. Well, God bless you for that. McGruff says, strange how they stopped counting votes. Yes, strange indeed. Because I was looking at, I was on the air for something like 6 hours last night, and I was looking at Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvania was either supposed to be, ridiculously pro-Biden or at the worst close. And it was like 56-41 all night. And then, oh no, we're not counting ballots anymore. Why? Why have you decided to stop counting ballots? That's a strange one. Peter Levy says this is why COVID hysteria lasted until the election. No, I think you're absolutely right about that. That we have this narrative now pushed by Keith Olbermann and other less ridiculous people than him, that every single death in the United States from COVID is Donald Trump's fault. Oh, that's curious. Why, in this instance, is every single cancer death Donald Trump's fault? Is every single death from a heart attack or stroke or heart disease Donald Trump's fault? Is every death from diabetes Donald Trump's fault? You see how they have so personalized this in a way that should be considered to be absolutely ridiculous, because people die. And in the United States every year, roughly about 3 million people die every year. Here's a thought experiment for you. When you're talking to your friends, ask them, how many people do you think die in the US every year? And then you tell them 3 million people. And I'd be curious to see their reaction, because 3 million people, well, that's half a Holocaust, right? But it happens every year in the United States. And of course, this is what happens when you have countries with very large amounts of people. But no, the 220,000 people who are ascribed to have died from COVID-19. Oh, this is unbearable. This is the worst thing that's happened in history. Oh, really? And what's the average age of death? 82. 82. So how long did you think these people were going to live, even without COVID-19? But I guess this is a peril of democracy, where everyone's vote is the same. That people who do not understand that 2 million people, 3 million people die every year in the United States, and divide that by 365, and you get what, something like 8,000 people a day die in the United States. But no, this doesn't seem to sink into them. Back to the chat here. Mistopheles Ghost says the warm-up was when the Dems stole the Alabama Senate election from Ray Moore and credited black women for record voter turnout. Metal Mike says a ballot box stuffing bonanza. Andrew B says KMG sounds very tired. I am a little tired because I was on the air until very late last night, but I don't know. Doing my best. Let's go to Breitbart here. Live updates, day 2, 2020 election results. And their map shows Biden at 227 and Trump at 213. But the states not being called, including Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and part of Maine, it would seem. New Washoe County Registrar Deanna Spicula says Washoe County will not be posting any new results today. The next result update won't happen until tomorrow morning. Why would that be? Exactly. You want to get the votes out and counted as soon as possible. Why do you want to do that? Well, because then it's over. That job is finished. That's a natural human reaction. But more important than that is because if you're going to delay counting the votes, then there is a suspicion, justified or not, that you're faking it. You're faking the results. Megan Messerly comments, so to recap, first, the Secretary of State's office said no new results today. Then Washoe County said new results at 10 a.m., which didn't happen. Then the Secretary of State said yes, new results today. Then Clark said no new results today. Now Washoe says no new results today. Jim Galloway tweets, almost 200,000 absentee ballots still need to be counted in Georgia. And there's a picture here of 2 women, and one of them, they're wearing masks, and there's a black woman and a white woman who looks like Barbara Streisand. She's got this poodle hair. Is there like a standard for this sort of thing? For going to stock photographs? Oh, yes, counting ballots. Well, of course, if we're counting ballots, well, it has to be two women. Why does it have to be two women counting ballots? Shut up, you misogynist. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. This is from 2:27 p.m. from Caitlin Collins. The White House just called the lid, meaning we do not expect to see President Trump for the rest of the day. From Shimon Prokopets, one of the first major protests in New York City, and they are marching behind banners that says "Every vote counts, count every vote." I don't really know who they are backing in this. Another from Shimon Prokopets, chance of count every vote. And again from Megan Messerly, an update from Washoe County. This would be in Reno, Nevada. We know that everyone wants results as quickly as possible, but it's more important to be meticulous in verifying ballots and running a clean tabulation, Deanna Spicula, Register of Voters, said. Yes, obviously you want the people to be counting votes to be meticulous in verifying ballots and running a clean tabulation. But how would November the 3rd, 2020 be different from any other vote in history? How would it be any different? Oh, back in the past, they weren't so meticulous in verifying ballots and running a clean tabulation. But this time, they are just sticking ever so closely to the rules. Because why? Because it's a particularly important election this year. I'm going to read from their press release, Media Advisory Washoe County Election Day Update, Reno, Nevada, November the 4th. The Washoe County Registrar of Voters will provide an election update at 3 p.m. to media with the link below. In addition, the registrar is releasing a final number of in-person voter turnout from Election Day. 21,512 overall in-person Election Day voter turnout. 5,197 Democratic, 7,454 nonpartisan, 8,861 Republican. A tabulation update was expected earlier today, November the 4th. However, the Registrar of Voters reported that staff was able to count all of the in-person votes and ballots that were received and processed by Election Day. The Registrar's office estimates about 9,000 mail-in and drop box ballots were received on Election Day, and staff is working throughout the day to process and tally those ballots. Quote, we know that everyone wants results as quickly as possible, but it's more important to be meticulous in verifying ballots and running a clean tabulation. We will update our results dashboard as regularly as possible and coordinate with the Secretary of State's office to ensure clarity and transparency. Again, this is from Deanna Spicula, Registrar of Voters. Additionally, this is running off the page here, and let me get to it. Additionally, 429 provisional ballots and 4,744 ballots cast with same-day registrations. 4,744 ballots cast with same-day registrations. That's not an open invitation to fraud. No. Why would you say something like that? Will be counted after all mail-in ballots are counted, allowing the registrar to conclude all counting by the November 13th deadline. The final canvass of the vote will be November the 16th, and only at that time should results be considered final. I guess they've won. I guess the gaslighters have won. That you may have grown up, as I did, watching presidential elections every 4 years, and they were decided that day or the next day with the losing candidate conceding, except in 2000. But now we've been told, no. Election day means nothing because it takes forever for the votes to be counted. And in the case of Washoe County, Nevada, it's only till November the 16th. This is highly significant. That if people believe that their votes don't make a difference on election day, they will come to the conclusion that the elections are stolen. It's that simple. It is really that simple. And the Democrats don't seem to care about this because they've adopted Al Davis strategy. Al Davis, the famous managing general partner of the Oakland Raiders, whose motto was "Just win, baby." That's how they think. Metal Mike says the problem with simply stealing the election is that half the country will not accept the results. I think that is true. And as I said tonight, I think that is highly dangerous. But these people don't understand the concept of danger. They don't understand the concept of legitimacy, because they've installed all of these color-coded rulers across the world. And they think, well, why not America? Well, why not America, indeed. Laramie Hirsch says, the effect of all this tampering reinforces my disgust of everything in the U.S. system. Yeah, I think it was Richard Meltzer who wrote that the only important question in the world is compared to what? Yes, it appears that the American election is the process of being stolen. How does this differ from the rest of the world? Jonathan Ferguson writes, Bush stole it, but whether he stole it or not, he was a war criminal and at the time the worst president since LBJ. Yeah, okay, I'm not going to disagree. Ultra Testosterone says, I don't accept the results. It's a fraud. Hickman Warrior says, Salazar was right and Pinochet. Yeah, Salazar, the dictator of Portugal for what? Close to 4 decades? A very quiet man. One didn't hear very much about him, which I think is the best kind of ruler, actually. Matt writes, Obama may not have been eligible to be president and people didn't really do anything. Well, you could look at Kamala Harris. She was born to 2 foreigners in the United States who are not citizens. So how is she eligible to be a candidate for the vice president of the United States? And it could be rather quickly she becomes president after Joe Biden strokes out, or as I joked in 2016 with regard to Hillary, that it is announced that he dies of a respiratory illness, which had not previously been diagnosed. That is to say that he's smothered with a pillow in the old Roman style. I mean, again, I believe I mentioned this at the top of the hour. Yesterday, on Election Day, Joe Biden was campaigning in Pennsylvania, and he put his arm around his, niece or granddaughter, and introduced this young woman as Beau Biden, his dead son, who so many of you had worked to put him in the U.S. Senate. Well, he confused his granddaughter with his niece or vice versa. And secondly, Beau Biden was never elected to the U.S. Senate. And the Democratic Party, well, I'll forgive them for this to a certain extent, but the media seem to think that, yeah, sure, this guy is non compos mentis. He is bonkers. But you have a problem with that? That sounds like ageism to me. Why shouldn't someone, how should we call it, neurodivergent, as Joe Biden is, be elected president of the United States? What kind of bigot are you? Mr. Marvel tweets, when the righteous increase, the people rejoice, but when the wicked rule, the people groan. Proverbs 29:2. Chogokin 666, is she a natural born citizen? Not in the way that I understand a natural born citizen. As far as I can see, Kamala Harris was what they call an anchor baby. 99 Iron Duke says, if ordinary right-wing people try to support Trump, the authorities will come down on them like a ton of bricks, unlike Antifa and BLM. Metatron, record turnout for cats and dead people yesterday. Yeah, it's one thing to steal an election, but it is quite another thing to live with the consequences of having stolen an election. And I don't think that the Democrats are ready for this. I don't think that they have thought any of this through, because thinking is not their strong point. Let's go to the Federalist here. On this episode of the Federalist Radio Hour, publisher Ben Domenech, senior editor Christopher Bedford, New York correspondent David Marcus, and culture editor Emily Jashinsky offer analysis of the 2020 election and break down why the pollsters and media were wrong yet again. The bottom line right here is that pollsters in America do not know how to poll the American people anymore, Jashinsky said. And that's not just for reasons that have to do with Trump. It's for technological reasons and for all kinds of reasons. While the election once again surpassed the expectations of professional corporate pollsters, Domenech notes that no matter the presidential election results, Trump gained ground with certain racial and ethnic groups which both the media and the left suggested was not possible. He said, the dynamic that I think we will continue to see in this election is Donald Trump is losing certain factions of his base from 2016, but also gaining incredibly among a more diverse population, increasing his level of support among African Americans, particularly African American men, and also overwhelmingly increasing his support among Hispanics. I'm very interested in this, that when we talk about Trump increasing support amongst blacks in America, well, black men, and no one seems to ask why black men and not black women. Well, there's a reason for that, which explains why when you go to the DMV and there are black people behind the counter, it's always black women and not black men, because black America is a matriarchy. And black men, or at least a fair amount of them, are not happy with this. Presumably, they're not happy with the fact that it seems that whenever you see a black man being celebrated in America, that black man is a homosexual or a transvestite, a drag queen, etc. Because the message of America to black men is, you are a joke. You don't count. We expect you to be angry and to do criminal things, and that's the best that we can ever hope from you. And that, to me, is a rather amazing story. But again, it's not the sort of thing that the media is particularly interested at all in spending more time considering. Again, to the Federalist, this is from John Daniel Davidson today. As of this writing, it appears that the Democratic Party machines in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania are trying to steal the election. As reporters and commentators went to bed early Tuesday morning, all three states were too close to call, but President Trump led former Vice President Joe Biden by comfortable margins, far beyond what had been predicted in the polls. None of the networks called these states because enough mail-in ballots remained uncounted that it could swing either way, but Trump's position looked good. Then something strange happened in the dead of night. In both Michigan and Wisconsin, vote dumps early Wednesday morning showed 100% of the votes going for Biden and 0%, that's zero, so not even one vote for Trump. In Michigan, Biden somehow got 138,339 votes, and Trump got none, zero, in an overnight vote dump. When my Federalist colleague, Sean Davis, noted this, Twitter was quick to censor his tweet, even though all he had done was compare two sets of vote totals on the New York Times website. And he wasn't the only one who noticed, although on Wednesday it appeared that anyone who noted the Biden vote dump in Michigan was getting censored by Twitter. And here's a tweet from Sean Davis. And at the top of it, it says, some or all of the content shared in this tweet is disputed and might be misleading about an election or other civic process. Learn more. How far can they take this, by the way? I'm just wondering that maybe this can be extended to voice communications, that when you send a message or you're talking on the phone to someone and you say that your ex-girlfriend, oh, I don't know, was a total bitch, that what you get is a message preceding that saying some or all of the content shared in this message is disputed and might be misleading. Is that where we're headed? That Big Brother is going to judge all of our statements? In any event, Sean Davis tweeted, so while everyone was asleep and after everyone went home, Democrats in Michigan magically found a trove of 138,339 votes, and all 138,339 of those votes magically went to Biden. That doesn't look suspicious at all. Yeah, this is the sort of thing which in the past has led to violence. Because, again, how hard do you want to cheat? Because if you had a trove of 138,339 votes, and 55% versus 45% is traditionally considered a landslide. So let's say you knock that up to 60 to 40. Okay, still believable. Kind of dubious, but still believable. If you want to go to 100% to nothing, that is obviously not believable. It is obvious fraud. It is obvious vote stealing. It is obvious criminal activity. But that's where you're going to go? 138,339 to nothing. If you remember the 2000 election, where Gore ultimately fell short in Florida, there was this meme that went around that the so-called butterfly ballots in Florida were so confusing that all these old people in their care homes mistakenly voted for Pat Buchanan. Okay, I suppose some of them could. The reason I bring this up is, let's say that you get together 138,339 voters and you pay them off to vote for Joe Biden. There has to be an assumption, that 1%, 2%, 5%, 10% are going to screw up the instructions because those are the people you're dealing with, and they're going to vote for Trump instead of Biden. When you get a 100% vote in favor of one person, look, this is just fraud. You can't. Let's hear from the other side. Let's hear from the Democrats explain, out of 138,000 votes, which were discovered mysteriously, 100% of them were for Biden. Well, you didn't have people voting for the libertarians. You didn't have people voting for the communists. You didn't have people voting for the Flat Earth Party or Stanley Kubrick fake the moon landing party. Really? 100 out of 100 votes? Not possible. Not even close to being possible. Pictus Alignum says, Archbishop Vigano just wrote a letter about the election situation. It's posted at the Remnant newspaper website. Thank you for that. Hikma Warrior says, BBWs in yoga pants. Brandon Smith, printing voters isn't a huge leap for people who print money. Mm, kind of a leap. Oscar Toe says, didn't Wisconsin have like 90% turnout? No, 90% turnout is impossible. 90% turnout is simply impossible. If you told voters that you have to vote or we're going to shoot you, you wouldn't get a 90% turnout. No, you might get 60%, 70%, but not a 90% turnout. Exactly what you get for voting in an election. Where's the endorphin rush? There really isn't one. That you fill out your ballot or you punch the buttons on the machine and then you leave and then you wait and then several hours later it's going to be counted. It's not like going to the store and spending $6 and getting a tub of Ben and Jerry's, because then you rush home and you take the top off and delicious ice cream. Voting isn't like that. 90% turnout in Wisconsin. What that is telling me is that the fraud is baked right into the cake. Brandon Smith says, what's the national average voter turnout? Somewhere between 40 and 60% typically. Professor Jonathan Pohl says 100% votes for Biden is to signal that they're even more gangster than Hoxha or Kim Il-sung. Peter Levy says Wisconsin's average is about 70%. That indicates a very high voter engagement, much higher than the rest of the United States. Jacob Rocha says, so how do you suggest this happened? Well, the Democrats decided that they weren't going to lose. And we had phase one, in which the polls said that, Biden is 10%, 20%, 30%, 120% ahead, and that he has a 199% chance of winning the election. That is to say, suppressing Republican voter turnout. So when that doesn't work, and it's clear that it didn't work, all of the states that Biden was supposed to have won handily, suddenly they become battleground states. That's strange how that happens. But the backup plan is that we count the votes. And you may think that your vote counts, but no, we decide how much your vote counts. It's that simple. And in 1960, when the Democrats stole the election, Kennedy versus Nixon, by stealing votes in Cook County, in Illinois, and in Texas, well, I suppose Americans were more innocent then, more likely to put up with the official story. They are less innocent today, after decades of being lied to by their governments, being lied into war, what in Vietnam and Iraq. I guess the question that the cheaters, the Democrats, the leftists ask everyone is, so what are you going to do about it? Huh? And the expectation is, well, I guess we can't do anything about it. Protest means nothing to these people. It meant nothing during the Iraq War. In London, before the invasion of Iraq, there was something like 500,000 or 600,000 people who descended upon the city to protest against the upcoming invasion of Iraq. And Tony Blair's government's answer was, so what are you going to do about it? Again, at the time that the Blair government banned blood sports in Britain, a roughly similar number, 500, 600,000 people came from all across England to London to protest. And the reaction of the government was, what are you going to do about it? Huh? And the idea of democracy, what it encompasses, has changed in recent decades. A man as unpopular as Tony Blair had become in Britain in previous times would have been forced to resign in the same way that Theresa May, say, would have been forced to resign months before she did. But Tony Blair and Theresa May, they took that same attitude. What are you going to do about it? And you see, this is the problem with informal rules. Oh, like Lyndon Baines Johnson in 1968, after he almost lost the New Hampshire primary to Eugene McCarthy, decided that, no, I have to drop out. I can't run again. Obviously, I've lost the support of the American people. But these people now, their attitude is, the support of the American people? I don't need the support of the American people to stay in power, because we have all of that power right with us. We have something called the deep state, and we will do whatever is necessary to maintain that power. It's amusing to me to see all these people, Max Boot, David Frum, Ann Applebaum, and the like, carry on about how Trump is a wicked man because he's not prosecuting forever wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, or whatever. And were these wars ever popular? Do the American people give a toss as to, oh no, the Taliban is going to come back into power in Afghanistan? Oh, yes. Yeah, I'm living here in Oklahoma, and I can't go to sleep at night over the thought that the Taliban might be coming back to power in Afghanistan. That is how divorced they are from ordinary people. Let's go back to the chat. Michael Mason, in your opinion, how accurate overall do you feel this election truly is? I feel maybe 80%, and that everyone's vote doesn't count. Well, if you're going to go, if you're going to go to the lengths that have been gone to in this election to steal it for the Democratic candidate, and once again, I'll point out, this isn't Hillary Clinton. Okay, I hate Hillary Clinton with a passion, and obviously she was a sick and rather infirm old woman running in 2016. But she wasn't a senile buffoon like Joe Biden, who cannot remember who his wife is, or who his grandchildren are, or who his nieces or children are, or whether his son was elected to the U.S. Senate. Do you remember back in 2016 when we were all supposed to be so terrified that Donald J. Trump was given the nuclear codes? Is anyone seriously thinking about the possibility of Joe Biden having nuclear codes? Because, well, look, we all know this is true. Joe Biden is not going to be given the nuclear codes. They're not going to let him get anywhere near the nuclear codes because of the prospect that he might decide to nuke the Ukraine, or he might decide to nuke Kazakhstan or something. I mean, just for the hell of it, right? That's how far gone Joe Biden is. Let's see. Donald Robertson says, plus the Taliban make for good target practice. Jonathan Paul, a spoonful of sewage added to a barrel of wine makes a barrel of sewage. Likewise, some fraud makes an election entirely fraudulent. Yes, I think you're absolutely right about this. You know, in 2016, the Democrats were beside themselves at losing the election. Now, I remember in 2008 and 2012, a lot of Republicans, people on the right, were beside themselves at losing the election twice to Barack Obama. But this is how it works. Some days you win, some days you lose. If you lose, you regroup and you consider how to win the next one. In 2016, the Democrats decided, no, we're never going to lose again. We can't have this happen. It is simply too egregious an insult for us to lose to Orange Bad Man. So this cannot happen. again. And when you see things, I don't know, a week before the election, say, where, oh, yes, we are going to count votes, 3 days after election day, up to 7 days after election day, even votes without postmarks on them. What is this telling you? It's telling you is that fraud. We're going to use fraud in order to win, because that's the only way we can win. That, oh no, Biden, Nate Silver says that Biden has a 132% chance of winning. If Biden has a 132% chance of winning, why do you need to use fraud? That's the question. That's the big question. Okay, so what else do we have here? Yeah, I'm looking at Breitbart here. Wisconsin goes Biden. Yeah, does it now? We're stuck here at 227 to 213, which is 450 electoral votes with 98% not declared. Do you remember, you've heard me talking about this over the last few weeks, that, oh no, elections are never declared on election night. But they're not? Really? Because they've all been declared from 1948 onwards on election night, or with the loser conceding the next morning, or at the very latest the next afternoon. But no, elections are never decided on election night. And guess what happens in the 2020 election? Where officially, it seems, and I'm talking at 8:01 p.m. Eastern Time on the day after the election, we have Biden at 227 electoral votes and Trump at 213 with 98 still undeclared. They let us know what was going to happen, that they were going to drag this out for as long as it took for them to win. Governor Tom Wolf, the Democratic governor of Pennsylvania, is pledging to count all outstanding mail-in ballots before Pennsylvania certifies a winner in this year's presidential contest. Wolf, who has publicly endorsed a former Vice President Joe Biden, took to social media early Wednesday saying the race is too close to call. We still have over 1 million mail ballots to count in Pennsylvania, the governor wrote on social media. I promised Pennsylvanians that we would count every vote, and that's what we're going to do. Wolf's message came shortly after President Donald Trump, who's currently leading in Pennsylvania with more than 3/4 of the vote tallied, delivered a defiant speech at the White House. In his remarks, Trump suggested electoral irregularities were taking place in a series of states, including Pennsylvania. We want the law to be used in a proper manner, the president said. So we're going to the U.S. Supreme Court. We want all voting to stop. We don't want them to find any ballots at 4 o'clock in the morning and add them to the list. As of early Wednesday, Trump had amassed a lead of more than 600,000 votes in the Keystone State. Again, I'm sorry, I find this so amusing. The Keystone State. Oh, yes, the writer is referring to Pennsylvania, because we all know the nicknames for all 50 of the states. Although the president's position looked good electorally, it remains unclear who will carry Pennsylvania after the large number of outstanding absentee and vote by mail ballots have yet to be counted. Oh, really? So you have a lead of 600,000 votes, which means that the other guy has to win the absentee and vote by mail ballots by what? 80%, 90%? Because that's obviously rigged. It's obviously rigged. Again, in terms of American elections, 55 to 45% is called a landslide. So how is it possible that, oh no, we have this magic tranche of 1 million votes, and of course they're going to go 80% for Joe Biden? Why? How could that possibly work in any other situation outside of fraud or, Albania, Cold War Albania? How could that possibly work? But the media has become inured to this kind of radical thinking. Oh, yes, there was 1 million ballots that were found behind a couch. And of course, they were 80% for Joe Biden. What? What? How could you possibly think that? In addition to whatever ballots have come in on election day, Pennsylvania poll workers will be able to count mail-in ballots that arrive in the next 3 days. Even if there is not a clear postmark, or even if the signature on the ballot does not match voter rolls. Yes, my longstanding joke about mail-in voting, which I will repeat for you, is we bring the fraud to you. I mean, used to have such a thing as registered voters. Was someone talking on the chat about election day registration? Oh, really? Oh, yeah, I'm in the lineup here. Can you hurry it up, please? Can you prove to me that you are such and such a person and you live in such a place? Can you hurry it up here? Okay? I got places I gotta go, and I want to vote. That's not how a serious country does its elections. Peter Levy says Chokik is 666. He is but a legitimate victory is always the best possible outcome for the country. Too bad it wasn't legitimate this time. YT says, go and make me some Earl Grey. The only good thing in this gray existence, BRB. Oh, dear. I like tea. As you may know, I'm drinking tea now. It's not Earl Grey. Again, Earl Grey, it always struck me as like brewing after dinner mints. It's too scented for my taste. But I'm glad that you enjoy it. Chokokin 666. Dancing Israelite says, wise choice not going on the kill stream last night. It was a shit show. I guess I was invited to go on it. But then my own live stream went from 4 o'clock Pacific time to 10 o'clock Pacific time. I'm rather amazed at how that happened. Max Vitriol says it would seem Republican operatives should start filing out and mailing some ballots in Pennsylvania. Goose says, although green tea is the best of you want to relax. Yeah, it reminds me of something from a Community. Jeff Winger. Oh, I've heard that about green tea. And then he's at the counter at the restaurant at the community college and says, I'll have a small coffee. Yeah. Oh, yes. Green tea. Suddenly we're told that, this thing that's been around like forever, it's just been decided that this is a miracle drink. Oh, is it now? Okay. I'll take your word for it, but it doesn't really have much of a taste, does it? One might as well drink water. Let's see, no green tea on empty stomach, though. Nausea. All right. Okay. Oh, dear. I thought it was only aspirin or zinc that you weren't supposed to take on an empty stomach. Hikma Warrior, why do they drink tea in the UK? Have you tasted their coffee? No, I have not. Coffee, of course, has become enormously popular in Britain. I guess that's London in Dr. Johnson's time is when the coffee craze really started. But the English were a nation of tea drinkers for the longest time. But of course, they were rolled over by the American coffee fetish with what Costa Coffee and all these other brands there in Britain. But no, I've never had British coffee, although I will tell you a true story that when I was in London, there was a British playwright, an English playwright named Arnold Wesker. Angry young man he was. Typically wrote about Jewish themes. And he wrote a play, which I've never seen or never read, but I only remember it because of its hilarious title, which is Peas with Everything, which describes I guess how restaurants used to work, where if you ordered anything, you got peas with it. I was once in a restaurant in London, and I ordered a pizza, and I got a plate with a side of peas on it. And I thought, with regard to Arnold Wesker, that is the most delicious thing in the world for a cliche to actually be rendered true before your eyes. Peas with everything. Um, they talk about the specialty of the English, mushy peas. And I'm thinking, yes, this is not making them more likable to me. Because throughout my life, oh, peas, these little green balls on the plate, well, they come in a shell. So you can just swallow them and not have to taste them. But I gather the point of mushy peas is that, yes, you have to taste this green goo on your plate. Well, some people like it. Goose says the English gave us property rights and good poetry. Not sure what else. Property rights and good poetry. Well, that's a lot, is it not? Jonathan Paul says, hold the peas and substitute jellied eels. Yes, I don't want to get into, the Northerners and their whelks and the rest of the stuff that they eat. I've never seen it in person, and to my mind, to this day, I'm thinking, this is all made up, right? Because no one is going to eat eels, jellied eels, whelks, the rest of it. But I thought that way about that slop that the Quebecois eat. You have chips, French fries, and it's covered with this slop. And I'd heard about this, and I thought they're making this up. It's it's a troll. But no, I was once at a Harvey's restaurant in Edmonton with Colby Kosh, now of the National Post, and he actually ordered poutine. And I thought, okay, so it's a real thing and not a troll. People actually eat this goop. Well, live and learn, as they say. Your mama says, how dare you blaspheme poutine? Well, I'm going to. And yes, I know someone said that the chat had become cozy again. Well, better than the alternative, I suppose. That chips, as we used to call them in Canada, or French fries, to me, you remember these things? Do they still sell these things called beef eater fries, which are these enormous French fries, which are cold and greasy, and for some reason, people seem to like that, or restaurateurs told us that we wanted this. No, the chip is this dichotomy that is crunchy on the outside and it is fleshy on the inside. If you're going to cover it with goop, then that no longer applies. You could be eating anything underneath that goop. Chogokin666 says steak fries. Yeah, I like steak fries. Okay, now Popcasso88, poutine is gross, but habitant pea soup is puke in a can. Disgusting. I talked about this when my father died in May. That I'd learned over the years that he had actually been raised in the province of Quebec. He was born in Ottawa, but he lived his early years in the province of Quebec on a farm, and we never heard anything about this. He disdained knowledge of anything to do with Quebec. I learned after he died that apparently he spoke French fluently, which was kind of a shock to me. All that I knew from my father about Quebec was that he hated the French. He hated the Quebecois and he hated the French. And there was no arguing with him on this. But every so often when I was a kid, I'd see my father in the kitchen and he'd be opening this large can of habitant pea soup, which looks like stage puke, you know, and all of us would be, ooh, how could anyone eat that? And thinking, like, why is he eating this? It's a strange choice, but I guess it was the one carryover from his upbringing in Quebec that he had allowed to continue until adulthood. KMG's next guest, Martha Stewart. Yeah, I suppose I could talk to her about the U.S. Justice system and how it's perfectly legal for the FBI to lie to you, but it is illegal for you to lie to the FBI. That would be an interesting show, don't you think? Contra Coup says, do you think there's any possibility of Scott is invalidating the 100,000s of votes that Dems are finding in urban areas? I don't see it. They would be called racist. Why racist? How do we know who these voters are? And why would black votes especially, be found behind a couch after Election Day? I'd like to see them, try to argue that. It would be too funny. Metal Mike says, sometimes I just still eat fish and chips just for the halibut. Ha, 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 ha. Halibut is expensive these days. You're more likely to get cod. I find it, when I was living in Victoria, I found it odd that fish was so very expensive compared to, say, pork. And, okay, when you look at pork, you have to, arrange for sows to give birth to pigs, and then you have to raise them, feed them, inoculate them, etc., for months or years until you kill them and carve them up. But with fish, you just take them out of the ocean. If you're living on the coast, shouldn't fish be cheap? Nope, not in Vancouver, not in Victoria. And it remains strange to me. Oh, I see Metal Mike is making a bunch of fish-related jokes. YT, Chogakin666 says Claire Ka is a Cockney. Born within the sound of the Bow Bells, was she? YT, I love swordfish steak. Haven't been able to buy it at any grocery store in Arizona yet. Yeah, that makes sense because Arizona is rather a long way from the ocean. Ultra Testosterone says white men should have come out like 90% for Trump. Yeah, I'm uncomfortable with this argument because let's look at the obverse of this. That blacks vote 95% for the Democratic candidate, whoever the Democratic candidate is. And we're supposed to think that this is perfectly normal. And it's not at all like Enver Hoxha's Albania. 90 to 95%. That I mentioned this before, but I'll repeat it. At the time of the Michigan primary in 2016, the BBC had this woman that they sent to cover it. And she interviewed some old black church lady who had just come out of voting. And she says, well, who did you vote for? And this old black lady says, Hiltron, or whatever she's called. You don't even have to know their name. It's just like it's in your circuitry that every 4 years you vote for the Democratic candidate. And again, this is a very strange and disturbing thing that the media doesn't seem to be interested in the United States. One would think that maybe, I don't know, 1/4 or 1/5 American blacks would, think about voting for the Republicans. I mean, just for the hell of it, just to stand out, No, but it's just absolutely regimented that you got to get 90 to 95%. And I guess the assumption is that 5 or 10% that doesn't vote for the Democratic candidate, they must have got confused at the polls or, put an X next to the wrong ballot by mistake. Hiltron. Yeah. No, I find I find, is Hiltron related to the biblical Metatron? Says Heckmel Warrior. I'm not familiar with the biblical Metatron. But yeah, there's many things that I am still ignorant of, even at my advanced age. Let's take a look at Drudge here. Joe gets most votes in American history. Nation waits! Exclamation mark. Count, count, count. Biden 264. Ooh, that's very close to 270. Trump 214. 50.36% of the vote versus Trump's 48.02. Yeah. Kathy Griffin retweets pic of bloody decapitated Trump again. This is from the U.S. Sun. The comedian was fired from CNN in 2017 after the gory stunt provoked an angry response from Trump supporters. Oh, just Trump supporters. Because someone who wasn't a Trump supporter, someone who was a Democrat or perhaps apolitical, wouldn't be outraged by someone holding up what appears to be the severed head, the severed bloody head of the President of the United States. In a press conference just after 2 a.m., Trump claimed he had won the election and promised to go to the Supreme Court. A few minutes later, Griffin reshared the photo to her Twitter feed without comment. It is so far being liked nearly 43,000 times. The picture was taken by photographer Tyler Shields, who is known for his edgy shocking. Again, there's a word missing there. Who is known for his edgy shocking what? Photographs, pictures, art, but it's left out in this story. But reports at the time alleged Trump's son Barron was frightened by it. The 11-year-old was watching TV with mom, Melania, when the comedian's photo appeared on the screen holding his dad's fake severed head. Gossip site TMZ reported. Barron screamed and panicked, "Mommy, mommy," Trump family sources told the site. Yeah, I don't believe any of that. Sorry. No. TMZ has an inside line into the Trump White House. Nah. He's 11. He doesn't know who Kathy Griffin is, and the head she was holding resembled his dad, the insider said. Oh, okay. Well, I can understand how an 11-year-old wouldn't know who Kathy Griffin was, because she was kind of like a C-level celebrity of the 1990s who is still alive. But we're supposed to believe that a reasonably intelligent 11-year-old would see some C-lister holding up an obviously fake head covered with blood and jump to the conclusion that Kathy Griffin somehow kidnapped my father, cut off his head, and is posing with it? No. President Trump branded Griffin sick and said she should be ashamed of herself. He wrote, "Kathy Griffin should be ashamed of herself. My children, especially my 11-year-old son Barron, are having a hard time with this. Sick." Chelsea Clinton, daughter of Hillary and Bill, also condemned the pictures, writing on Twitter, "This is vile and wrong. It's never funny to joke about killing a president." Even Kathy's longtime friend and CNN New Year's Eve show co-host, Anderson Cooper, the gay robot, blasted the images. He wrote, "For the record, I'm appalled by the photo shoot Kathy Griffin took part in. It is clearly disgusting and completely inappropriate. She initially apologized, saying that she understood why the image offended, but later retracted it, saying the whole outrage was BS. At one point, she claimed she was investigated by the FBI and placed on the no-fly list over the stunt. Earlier this year, she joked at President Donald Trump. Again, there's words missing in this paragraph. Again, don't blame me, okay? This is just how everything on the internet is edited now, and I'm going to read it verbatim. Earlier this year, she joked President Donald Trump a syringe with nothing but air inside it would do the trick. That's exactly what it says on the page. Griffin's jab came on Twitter in response to a tweet that said Trump told reporters he doesn't use insulin, which diabetics use to keep their blood sugar at safe levels. Oh, it's good to know that about insulin. Yeah, I would have thought after 2008, the world's economy crashed and almost burned. I mean, it was almost the end of economics as we know it. And there was a painful recovery. But for a lot of people, there was never any recovery. And my hypothesis was that this would have led to a cleansing, that the surplus of capitalism, as I call it, up to 2008 had resulted in the existence of things that one wouldn't imagine existing, things that had no reason to exist. The American university system would be one, with its black studies, women's studies, intersectional studies, etc., etc. Performance art would be another one. Nobody likes performance art, but still, it endures. Modern art as a whole. The only reason, some Jackson Pollock painting sold for $12 million. That's because all of the good art was sold a long time ago, and that's all that's left. Jackson Pollock and the kind of stuff like severed sharks in a tank of formaldehyde, Tracy Emin's messy bed, that sort of thing, and celebrities. Okay, Angelina Jolie. Okay, I get that. Okay, she's a good-looking woman, or used to be. But Kathy Griffin, like, how is Kathy Griffin? Why are we talking about Kathy Griffin? Why would anyone care about Kathy Griffin? And I thought that after the collapse of 2008, that we would have seen the last. We'd seen the last of Kathy Griffin and her ilk. Nope, not a bit of it. Now there are the Real Housewives of, I don't know, the Real Housewives of Portland. And oh no, we're supposed to, and The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. I would have thought that amongst the celebrities, I mean, the real celebrities, they would have thought, we have to rein this in. Because if this goes down, we're all going to go down. So we have to make a distinction between people who are actually celebrities and people who, well, are not. Like, say, contestants on The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, and the like. But no, we just get more and more and more of it. And it's just kind of taught me a lesson, something that I'd known before, but I'd never really internalized, that all things that are bad keep going bad, and they don't stop being bad. And there's never a pullback. They just keep getting worse and worse and worse until, that civilization collapses. And that's where we are now. That we're taking election advice from women who are simply famous or notorious for taking their clothes off. That's the people who are instructing us morally now. Oh, well, yeah. I mean, how dare you? Emily Ratajkowski, or whatever her name is, she is a renowned what? She's a pair of breasts. That's all she is. And she's never given any indication that there's anything more to her than that. But we're supposed to nod our head respectfully when she comes up with anything. I promised at the beginning, or I warned at the beginning, that this show might not be as long as typical. I went 6 hours plus last night, so I think I'm going to kick it in the head here at 90. I will be back on the air tomorrow with a normal show, normally formatted show, at 4 p.m. Pacific and 7 p.m. Eastern time. If you like the show or any part of it, I'd appreciate it if you click on the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you have not done so already. If you would like to contribute to this live stream, greatly appreciated. My PayPal account is attached to Kevin_Grace@hotmail.com. Once again, Kevin_Grace@hotmail.com. If you're Canadian, you could send money to me directly via interact@kevingrace@shaw.ca. So today is Wednesday, which means that tomorrow is Theater Thursday. And on Theater Thursday, I'm going to be talking about an American film from 1975, set in small town California. I believe Santa Rosa is the name of the place. Directed by Michael Ritchie. It's called Smile, and it stars Bruce Dern, and it's about a beauty pageant, and it's a beautiful, sweet, funny, and sad film. On the book club on Friday, I'm going to be discussing a absolutely horrifying book by Abigail Schreier. Really important book, which I think that every parent should read, every prospective parent should read, to understand the madness and the wickedness which has taken hold of America's schools and this medical profession. It's called Irreversible Damage: The Transgender Craze Seducing Our Daughters. So I will leave you with this. In these days of social atomization and civilizational collapse, I do dearly wish that you, my dear viewers and listeners, manage to form a genuine human connection in order to ease the burden. Good night.